Urban X TV. I am Malcolm, got the black dot here, and we have a special guest sitting here with us today. We have Elijah Whitehead from the YouTube channel, What Happened to Common Sense? I've been wanting to get this interview done for a while because I see what you do as far as talking about tech and educating our community on tech and cryptocurrency. And a lot of people come to us after every show when they ask us questions about crypto and we have no answers for them and we just refer them to your channel, but we finally got you here and we can get, these answers straight from you. So how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty well. Can't complain. How are you doing yourself?
I'm great, man. I am great, considering all, the craziness that's happening. You know how that goes.
Yeah, I believe you're in New York City as well.
Yep.
We're going into another lockdown phase or curfew, might I add.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so we know how that goes.
And I love the title, What Happens to Common Sense, because that's my superpower. When I try to tell people, you don't have to be extra this and extra that. If we get back to a level of common sense, a lot of these things will just make sense because we understand them. And we've lost our ability to use common sense based on all the things that's going on in the media. And it really irks me. And I tell people all the time, my superpower is common sense.
Correct.
I'm not going to hit you with nothing else but common sense. And if you refute common sense, then that's really on you. So I love the title of the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I picked the title because I just see a lot happening in the community that's absolutely pure foolishness. And I think that we are in dangerous times right now where we no longer have the time to play games. If you don't have knowledge of self at this point, if you are not awakened to the problems and the ills that not just plague society, but particularly our community, then we don't really have the time to be dialoguing. We are going through the fourth industrial revolution. We are going through the Great Reset. This is no longer a conspiracy theory. Right. This is here. When you walk into your average grocery store, your retailer, you see kiosks everywhere, self-checkout everywhere. Tesla's perfecting a self-driving car. What's going to happen when they perfect the self-driving, the self-flying plane, the self-driving truck? All of these jobs are going to be automated by AI. And at a certain point, what's going to happen to all of these jobs that's going to be lost? See, a lot of people believe that we're losing jobs to quote unquote outsourcing in China, but many of the jobs are being taken away by the microchip. And it's very, very important that in these times, this whole pandemic thing is only going to accelerate the whole idea of technology because, see, AI, robots, kiosks, they operate 24/7, 365. They don't need health insurance.
Right.
They don't need a 401k. So you have to start positioning yourself. And this is why I really started talking about technology and these things, because I get to go to these trade shows and I get to see the technology that's getting ready to come. That's not even really released to the public yet. And if you had an idea as to where we're going, this is going to be highly disruptive to the average working person. And Andrew Yang was the only candidate up there that was actually talking about automation and AI. And Elon Musk said his biggest fear is this technology, because what are you going to do with millions of people who will be out of a job?
Right. And even when I spoke to you, on the phone, I mentioned Andrew Yang's book, The War on Normal People. And that's one of the things me and my pops we talk about on the show is we try to promote people to acquire these skills, take these courses, no matter how much they cost. If they're expensive, they'll be worth their investment because, like you said, of what's to come. So I actually want to get into it. I wanted to first get your background history on what ultimately led you to entrepreneurship and your field of expertise.
Well, I grew up in New York City. I played basketball most of my life. I was actually pretty good. I went to Rice High School on 124th and Lenox before it had shut down. And like the typical young black male growing up in the urban area, quote unquote, the hood, I thought I was going to go to the NBA. So I didn't take school serious. I was a mediocre student where I just needed the 70 to be eligible to play. And if I failed one or two classes, I could make it through the first semester to be eligible to play throughout the second semester. And then that caught up to me my 11th grade year in high school. And I ended up having to go to a boarding school called Proctor Academy up in Andover, New Hampshire. Now you have to think about this, coming from Harlem, where I'm running the street all night long. Grandma can't keep up with me. I'm playing in Dykeman. I'm sort of like a little mini celebrity in my city. And then I end up in Andover, New Hampshire, where there's nothing but mountains, woods, and snow. Now, this school, it costs about $30,000 a year to go to the school. These kids, they're going there to be the next president, to run a Fortune 500 company. They're there to be about their business. I'm going there with the mindset of, I just need to get eligible so that I can go play college D1 ball. And when I got there, it was a culture shock because I was coming from a school system where they allowed me to be mediocre. Whereas now when I get here, first day of school, we talking about works cited pages and syllabus and stuff. I'm like, whoa, this is different. So everyone there was actually wanting to learn. So it was the first time in life I really felt like out of place. I mean, everyone has on cardigan sweaters and polo t-shirts and polo shirts, and I'm up there with a Stop Snitching t-shirt. But it was a lot of the culture where I came from. And that was the first time where like life started to hit me. And then that's when I really started kind of, getting a little bit as to maybe the way I was living or thinking isn't the only way.
Right.
But I was still a little ignorant, rough around the edges. I ended up missing about 65 days of school. I played with Jerome Dyson up there. He ended up going to UConn and playing with the New Orleans Pelicans. Long story short, the coach actually said that they wouldn't invite me back. We had the greatest year up there since the school existed basketball-wise, but he said that he was trying to teach me a lesson that was actually going to help me grow. And at the time, I didn't get it because I was ego and my feelings about it. So I ended up leaving that school and going to another prep school. School ended up getting shut down. So I was getting ready to go to JUCO, which was Monroe College. I was up there. I was killing them. LIU happened to be in the building, Long Island University, Brooklyn campus. And they had a program called the HULC program where I could still go D1, but I would have to sit out for 1 year and get 24 credits. Ended up going to LIU, downtown Brooklyn. But again, this is my first time having to actually sit out now and not play any basketball.
Right.
I actually had to go and be a student first and not a basketball player. So then after I completed my freshman year at LIU. And then that summer, I discovered one of those pyramid scheme things. You get three, that get three, that get three, that get three. But for me, I was like, wow, this is easy. Everyone I know uses electricity.
Right.
And then that got me started on my entrepreneurial path. And then boom, 2008, the recession hits. And then this is new to me, all of these terms and like, it didn't make any sense to me, but because I was getting into business, I really started diving into the economics. And then you start finding about too big to fail, and you start finding about derivatives. You start finding about fractional reserve banking and the Federal Reserve not being a part of the government. You start finding about all of these things that for so long to the average person, you were blind to. And then once I start diving down that rabbit hole, I realized I'm not going to an MBA. Right? And then I completely fell out of love with basketball, and I just fell 100% in love with business and economics and finance. But then I ended up making a stupid mistake of dropping out of school. And I think that was one of the biggest mistakes I made as an entrepreneur, was dropping out of school, because being in college took me out of my chaotic, disruptive environment. But then when I dropped out of school, I ended up back in that environment.
Got you. So along the way, like you said, once you fell in love with business, you kind of hit, a little rabbit hole. What were some of the books that helped you cultivate that love?
I would say that the very, very first book that I would encourage any aspiring entrepreneur to read would be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Not because the book is actually true. We know that the story isn't true, but it's put in a way where you start learning very quickly the difference between an asset and a liability. And so many people really don't know the difference to distinguish what an asset is. Something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket, and this entire economy preys on the fact of your ignorance when it comes to financial literacy.
Right.
So that to me is the very first book. Now, again, don't fall down a rabbit hole of buying every one of Robert Kiyosaki's books, because I was stupid enough to do that. He repeats the same thing in every book.
Yeah.
But if there's one book I would want you to read, it would be Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because it gets you to start thinking and understanding the difference between, working, saving money, the value of a dollar, learning about inflation, deflation. All of these basic topics are covered in that book, so you can get a brief understanding. And then the next book I would encourage you to read is The Creature from Jekyll Island, so that you can understand money. Because see, a lot of people don't even know the problems with our monetary system, so therefore they can't see the need for a Bitcoin. Like, if you grow up in a prison, then you're never going to see a problem with the prison, because you was born and raised in it. So many of people, especially our people, we don't even know that the dollar's not backed by gold anymore. Right? So many people don't even know something as basic as that. So many people don't even know that literally your dollar loses 3% of its purchasing power every single year. The Fed has an inflation target. So when you're going to the store and you're spending your dollar and you're saying, oh my God, the cost of everything is going up, it's not that the cost of everything is going up, it's that the value of your money is going down.
Gotcha.
I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago in reference to growing up in an environment with lack of understanding that this is not the end all and be all. And that's a trap a lot of our young people fall into. You grow up in the hood thinking that's all it is, and then you get that culture shock, and you were fortunate enough to be able to reinvent yourself during that process. Where a lot of our young people, they go and they don't make it. You know what I mean? It's too much of a culture shock. But the awareness, because I have a great friend named Derek Bell, who challenges, he's a personal trainer, but he's always challenging parents to get their kids to go to boarding school for numerous reasons. The networking aspect of it, and for you to get a snapshot of what the real world is going to look like outside of this bubble you have created, thinking you're going to go pro or become a rapper. The question I wanted to ask you before we move forward is this information easier to teach to young people? Because I'm 52 and sometimes the language of it is a little bit harder. So do you find your academy is filled with younger people, or are older people also able to really understand and grasp the concept that you're teaching?
I would definitely say that this is more geared towards younger people, simply for the fact that they were born with technology, right? So for them, utilizing email, Photoshop, taking pictures with Instagram, editing pictures, literally like playing with technology for them is extremely easy because they grew up with it. Right. Whereas with older people, they're still struggling with, the whole idea of, sending an email. So I would 100% say that this type of tech is more geared towards younger people. Now, that doesn't mean that older people cannot learn about the technology, but what I've noticed, especially now that I started teaching about this, is that, it's definitely a steeper learning curve for older people. Now, going back to the culture shock, you see, every day that I wake up, I am fortunate and blessed to be in the position that I'm in, because many of my peers aren't doing as well as I am. Many of my family members who grew up in the same environment that I grew up in, they fell by the wayside, whether it was going to prison, having kids at a young age, et cetera, et cetera. I'm here as a function of just the simple fact I was 6'7", I could dunk a basketball. So I always had some type of an economic value where I could mess up, but a person would always bail me out because I had some type of a value proposition. Whereas many of my peers growing up, because they weren't 6'7" and can dunk a basketball, they weren't given a second or third or fourth or fifth chance. You got to think about it like, I went to Rice High School for free. I went to Proctor Academy for free. I went to college for free. This is me having, horrible grades, me being a bad student, having a horrible attitude, disrespecting people. But yet, because I always had some type of a value, I would always get bailed out. Whereas, again, many of our people growing up in the environments where we come from, they only really get one or two chances and that's it. So, I tend not to be so critical of a lot of people who come from where we come from, because there's so much dysfunction and chaos in our environments that it's very easy to get tripped up, especially when you're young and you're coming from such a toxic culture where it's, you know, it's normal to be dysfunctional. Like we normalize so much dysfunction in our lives. You know, I still carry a lot of the dysfunction with me as an adult that I'm still, you know, trying to reprogram myself for certain things. And I think that is very important that we understand that, and we don't be so, you know, quick to judge certain people. Now, that doesn't mean you should waste your time trying to, you know, beat a dead horse, but just understand what a lot of people are going through, you know, in life.
I actually, I definitely appreciate your honesty and your self-awareness on, like you said, you like, I'm 6'7", I can dunk, so I've gotten a lot of chances that the average person wouldn't, especially when it comes to stuff like entrepreneurship and business, because a lot of people, what you see online, a lot of these gurus, they won't tell you who, you know, invested in their business, who put up the money for their business, but they'll tell you that they're, you know, self-made and things like that, and they won't tell you all of the little nuances that actually help them along the way. So I definitely appreciated that just now.
Yes.
Going a little forward, I wanted to know, what is your favorite investment vehicle? Because you speak a lot about crypto, and I saw you spoke, I know on your Instagram, you spoke a lot about real estate as well. So I want to know, you personally, like, what has been your niche?
Your go-to, yeah.
My go-to is crypto, just for the simple fact of just looking at the numbers. The stock market is well over, the market cap of this entire stock market is over $100 trillion. The market cap of crypto is less than $500 billion. So when you're looking at it just from a pure number standpoint, most of the growth is skewed towards crypto. Like, this is extremely disruptive technology. So when you start understanding how this technology is going to bleed into and eat so many other industries, it's a no-brainer about putting your money into crypto. You know, I've been involved. I am like an OG when it comes to crypto. I've been involved in crypto for over 8 years. I was investing in Bitcoin back when it was, you know, $10, $15, $20, $30 a coin, right? So it's a no-brainer where your money should be at. And then now we look at all of these new cryptocurrencies coming out, that these sort of, you know, crypto 2.0 or blockchain 2.0 technology. It's so promising to the point where, and I've been talking about this for so long, now you have central banks coming out and governments coming out talking about they're going to create their own version of a cryptocurrency called central bank digital currencies. And for so long, people called this a scam, a scheme, a Ponzi scheme. It wouldn't work. And if you've been wrong about technology for 11 years, at a certain point, you have to start buying into the fact of this is the future. Decentralized applications are the future. Now, also, I'm a big investor in gold. I believe that investing in gold is meant for preserving your purchasing power, right? If you're a person, you amass some wealth and you've, you know, accrued some wealth over time, you want to protect that from inflation. So I believe investing in gold. I also invest in silver, because silver is used in most technology. It's the fastest conductor of electricity. And once it's used in technology, you can't melt down your MacBook and get this silver back. So if you look at the gold to silver ratio, silver is actually grossly undervalued, and it's an asset that you should definitely be taking a look at, because it's going to outperform gold just based upon pure numbers. Now, I like to invest in precious metals mining stocks, because they are the people who's actually looking for the gold, right? Looking for the silver, and that's going to be a better bang for your buck. So I look at gold as more as a protection from inflation for people who actually have built up some wealth. Now, if you're poor, you don't have any business investing in gold, you need to be focused on crypto, because again, it's just simple numbers. If you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin is worth $288 billion as of today. So that means it only takes another $288 billion for it to double. The entire gold market cap is worth $10 trillion. So $10 trillion is a lot of money. It's going to take another 10 for gold to double. And as of today, I'm speaking to you, Bitcoin just hit $16,000 per coin. And no, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You could buy a fraction of a Bitcoin, because people always ask me that. I don't have $16,000 to buy Bitcoin. You could buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. You could buy $50 worth of Bitcoin. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question, because First time I even heard about Bitcoin, I was watching a movie that came out. It was called, I think, Dope or Fresh, something that came out a few years ago. And the kid, I think he was selling drugs, but he was using Bitcoin and something. I had never heard the term. So when I heard that, when I learned that this is a real thing that was happening, I watched every single big financial name go on CNN, Fox News, all these like Fox Business channels, and say this is, fly by night. This is not gonna last. It's a bubble that's gonna burst. It's all these things. So I want you to speak to your foresight and who actually helped you see that as well, if anybody.
And side note, before you answer that, I also want to say you are the only one who really stayed strong on that. Like when everyone was trying to say, this is crazy, it's not going to work, I saw you on your channel saying, y'all just don't know what you're talking about. And it piqued my interest that you stood strong on that, and you were right. You were right. What else can I say?
Yeah. Well, as I said before, I was raised in the Nation of Islam, right? So I always had like knowledge of self. Like my mother literally carried me in the womb down to the mosque, right? So I always had like knowledge of self, seeking new knowledge, stuff like that. And I always knew that there was more to the world. My dad used to all the time, reinforce that to me. So once I finally made that decision to shift from the whole basketball narrative and really start focusing on the business narrative, I'm not a person that you can really just come to me and sell me the quote unquote business prospectus. You have to go a little bit deeper with me because I know that there's always another level, right? So when going down this quote unquote conspiracy theory rabbit hole, I got exposed to this whole libertarian mindset, in the Federal Reserve, Ron Paul, Rand Paul, Alex Jones, reptilian, shape-shifting aliens, all of that crazy stuff. But in a mix of that, right, I came across, the whole in the Fed movement, and I started learning about money. And then I came across a Black guy by the name of Da Vinci J. He still has his YouTube channel. This was probably like 9 years ago. And I started buying gold and silver. And then I started learning about the Silk Road, and I started learning about Bitcoin. And then I really started like diving into the fact like this was, cutting edge technology, because Nipsey Hussle had a video that he put out years ago where he was saying that the problem with our monetary system and our politics, you're not going to fix this with an election. You're not going to fix this with a protest, right? You're going to need to create something that can really compete with this beast. That's it. So when I start looking at what Bitcoin was trying to do and what Satoshi was trying to create, I knew that this technology was going to be extremely disruptive to the point where you couldn't ignore it at first. Now, a lot of people love to talk about the fact that, you only could use Bitcoin for illegal things. You only could use it for, sex trafficking and to buy drugs. Well, that's how the internet was back in 92, 95. If I would have came to you 20 years ago and said that you would use the internet to date, to buy your food, to do your banking, right? Like to book your cabs, to pay your rent, you would say to me, I'm crazy. There's no way that I'm going to do that. Here we are now 25 years later, and you using the internet, you don't even think twice about it. Like if you look at your phone is a map. Right? Your phone, you buy your groceries for you, literally all of these things. And when I saw Bitcoin, I said to myself, I saw the future before it was here. I started saying to myself, I'm not buying it for what it is today. I'm buying it for what it can be tomorrow. And that's always been my investment thesis. Like, for example, you don't buy Tesla because they've perfected everything. You buy it because they're trying to perfect something, right? So what is Tesla going to be worth when they perfect the self-driving car, right? And that's why it's hard to put a valuation on technology, because you don't know how many other industries they're going to eat up, right? So when you start understanding, like, look what Apple did to most DSLR cameras. How like your phone is more powerful than some of these basic cameras. Look what happened to Polaroid because of Apple, right? So you have to start understand. So when you look at technology, because many people miss this, that Bitcoin is a technology, it's a protocol. Ethereum is a technology. Like, it's not just a currency. So when you start looking at the internet, many of you don't even know that the internet's an application running on top of protocols, and it's a stack of protocols. But you didn't have a chance to invest in SMTP, FTP, HTTP. So these mega, tech companies, they were able to capture all of the wealth. For the first time, you and I, we have a chance to invest in a base layer protocol, and they're going to capture all of the wealth. So me learning all of that and knowing that, it was a no-brainer to me where this was going to go, because we need a money over the internet protocol, and that's what Bitcoin is trying to be.
Question: do you think all of the propaganda came because our government was trying to create their own, and now because it's ironic, now they're speaking about it, and they didn't want us to get a foot up ahead? You think it was something to do with that?
1000%. What a lot of people don't understand is that crypto, to me, is our last great chance at beating the globalists, beating the financial elite. If we don't get this correctly, we're pretty much done. Because when you start looking at how much they track and trace and monitor literally everything that we do, and we allow them to create this central bank digital currency, and we move into this cashless society where everything's going to be tracked, traced, and monitored, that's going to be extremely problematic. So going back to the Black Dot's question, this was the first time that retail investors were able to beat Wall Street, meaning that crypto was really just a retail phenomenon, right? It was mainly a bunch of libertarians and cypherpunks who they wanted out of the system after what happened in 2008, right? And then now what happened is the powers that be started to see, wait, hold on, this is something that can truly be a threat to us. So now you can start to see that they're starting to try to infiltrate it. And I believe that that may be crypto's undoing, undoing if we allow a lot of these big, Fortune 500 companies and banks and governments in. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are blinded by greed at this point. And a lot of people are not getting into crypto. Crypto has morphed from being more of this cypherpunk libertarian ideology to now a lot of people are getting in this to get rich. And I understand it, because the amount of opportunity and money is just insane when you start thinking about the fact that less than 1% of the world's population has ever even engaged in a cryptocurrency transaction, right? So like, you just think about where this is going to be in the next 3 years, 5 years. And a lot of people get blinded by the money and they lose track of the mission. And as I said, going back to the Dot's question, now the governments are starting to get involved, and now they're trying to figure out a way to co-opt this. And, I think that that could be a problem in the future going forward.
I saw recently, we talked about this on our show, that the IRS will start asking about crypto, I guess your gains that you're getting through crypto on IRS forms soon. And like you said, you're starting to see a lot of these organizations are trying to infiltrate. But I wanted to take a step back really quick. So I think I heard on one of your broadcasts that you said that there's a finite amount of crypto, and I wanted you to explain that, because because I don't know anything about it. I'm thinking, okay, it's digital, but how is it a finite amount? So that kind of confuses me. So I wanted you to speak to that a little bit.
Well, that's the exact problem that Satoshi solved, was the double spending problem. That's what makes Bitcoin unique. See, with a digital product, it's very easy to recreate it, and it's easy to create it for very cheap. Like, think about a picture, you can just simply copy it and paste it, right? So it doesn't cost a lot for you to duplicate digital goods and services. So what Satoshi was able to do was he was able to blend together existing technology. See, what a lot of people don't understand is that Bitcoin isn't revolutionary new technology. Cryptography has existed going back to the ancient Egyptians with hieroglyphics, right? The whole purpose of cryptography is a way that you can encrypt a message where only the intended party can basically decipher it. So when you go into the pyramids and you see all of the hieroglyphs and stuff like that, those messages were meant for people who only knew how to decipher it. Fast forward now, the Romans, they had the Roman Empire, they had Caesar's cipher. So this is what cypherpunks were able to do with cryptography. That's the whole idea, is that we want to be able to encrypt messages in a way where even if you intercept it, if you don't have the proper decryption method, you won't be able to decrypt the message. So Satoshi was able to blend computer science, cryptography, and hash functions together to create Bitcoin. And then he was able to solve the double spending problem. Now, going back to when you were talking about Bitcoin having a finite cap, there will only ever be less than 21 million Bitcoin in existence. And in the crypto community, we have a saying, we don't trust, we verify. See, that's the whole purpose of creating this trustlessness, where I no longer want to have to trust my bank. I don't want to have to trust my government. I want to be able to pull up the open source code and look at it, and I can see the actual function that there will only be 21 million Bitcoin. Gotcha. That's very, very important. And the way that Bitcoin is a deflationary currency where every 4 years, the block reward gets cut in half. So once we get to 2140, no new Bitcoin will ever be issued. And that's what's really attractive, especially in this world where, you know, I mean, the government literally with this whole pandemic thing, they put together a $7 trillion lending facility in a matter of a weekend. Right. And now we're looking at the debt and the deficit grow extremely out of control. So this is basically like a hedge against that type of inflation by having a deflationary currency. And I want to add, I keep talking a lot about Bitcoin because that's the most popular one, but there are literally thousands of different cryptocurrencies and they all have different pros and cons. So for example, with the IRS getting involved, Bitcoin is a public open ledger, meaning that you can see everything that's happening. You can see everyone's balance. You can see who sent what Bitcoin to which address. Bitcoin is a pseudo anonymous cryptocurrency, meaning that I don't have to identify that I'm behind that address, but I can see everything that that address is doing.
Gotcha.
Now, there's other cryptocurrencies like Monero. In my opinion, Monero is 1,000 times better than Bitcoin because number one, it's faster. Number two, it's private, meaning everything top to bottom is private. I'm only using my address one time. You can't see my balance and you can't see who I'm sending crypto to because see, there are companies like Chainalysis, where all they do is study and monitor the blockchain. And they've been able to, with their tools that they have, start linking people to certain addresses. And this is how a lot of people get caught because a lot of people believe that Bitcoin is this, you know, cryptocurrency that you could do all of this illegal stuff with. And it couldn't be further from the truth. It's very easy to track and monitor and trace everything that's happening on the blockchain. Now, there are other cryptocurrencies like Zcash and like Monero that are extremely powerful pieces of technology. And when you're buying Monero is everything that you think you're getting with Bitcoin. And I teach about all of these different things in the academy.
Okay, let's even get to the academy. First, I want you to explain what your academy is and what you are teaching because I went to your site and it'll be in the description below. I went to your site and again, for somebody who is a novice, like I'm not understanding what blockchain technology is. You mentioned it a few times here, and from what I'm putting together, from what I gather, it's what kind of makes the crypto work, I guess. But
yeah, well, again, that was just Satoshi taking existing technology and blending it together. So blending cryptography, blockchain technology, hash functions, and putting them together to solve the double spending problem. Now, with my academy, what I focus on doing is teaching you, number one, how to use the technology, and then also teaching you how to build the technology, right? So right now we have a coding bootcamp going on with JavaScript, because if you look at Ethereum, they have decentralized applications known as dApps, and you have to have a front end. That's like the actual website that you go to, you input your balances, your addresses and stuff like that, and it communicates and talks on the back end to a blockchain. So understanding where technology is going, understanding where the jobs are going, it'll only make sense for you to learn about technology because you can work remotely. And an entry-level blockchain developer is earning $74,000. If you go to LinkedIn, the number one job that employers were looking for, skill set that they were looking for, were blockchain developers. So this is an extremely new industry and it's in demand. Think about this. because I love to put things in the proper perspective and context where people can understand it. If you knew how to develop apps in the iOS App Store back in 2009, 2010, you would be a millionaire, because most people didn't know how to do that, right? There's something known as timing. See, many people miss this with being an entrepreneur, is that it's not about your skill set. Many people don't understand. A lot of it has to do with just a function of timing, being in the right place at the right time. And if you have that type of advantage where you have a skill set that most people don't even know about, you're first. And you get to gobble up all of that free digital real estate to the point where now you're in demand. And I think a lot of people miss that. So that's what I focus on doing in the academy is, number one, teaching you how to invest in the technology, teaching you how to be an entrepreneur with the technology, or just, basically teaching you about it. Because many people, like the Dot said earlier, older people are not really interested in trying to play around with the technology and coding and all that type of stuff. They just really want to know, how can I put my money into some of these cryptocurrencies and make some money? So I focus on that aspect, but then I also focus on teaching people about how to use the technology as far as like being an entrepreneur and build the technology, because I really think that this is extremely important, because going forward, what you're going to start to see, because even Twitter did this, you can work remotely now at a lot of these big tech companies with this whole pandemic thing that's going on. This pandemic is going to be our 9/11. The world completely changed after 9/11, and the world is going to completely change now after coming out of this. And having the skill set to be able to work remotely and be able to program and work on artificial intelligence, to work on deep learning, machine learning, or even web development is going to be extremely important. So I like to say that I'm that bridge, but a lot of this stuff you can learn for free too. I don't want people to see, one thing about me, I'm not here to try to make a quick buck, right? I believe in my ability to teach, but I also understand that some people, they just don't have the money. Harvard has open courseware on YouTube. Literally, they're giving you their actual semesters of them teaching computer science, machine learning for free on YouTube. You can literally go learn web development and all of this stuff for free on YouTube if you want to. Now, the problem with free is it's scattered. It's kind of all over the place. It's going to take you a lot longer. But again, MIT even has open courseware where you can literally be a student at MIT for free. And I really think people missed how revolutionary, this technology is going to be and disruptive it's going to be. And people really need to make sure that they're trying to get their hands on this information very, very quickly.
Okay, so I'm just watching this interview. I'm excited. However, I don't know where to start. I don't know what books to read. I don't know where to start. What would be your first piece of advice to that person if they just wanted to just get in?
Well, with crypto, it's sort of like learning how to swim, right? You can read a book about swimming, but until you actually go out there in the water and you feel it, and you feel the ocean and the current and the waves, then you're not really going to know what you're doing. Crypto's hands-on. Same thing with programming and web development. You can read books all day long about computer programming and web development. Coding is a hands-on, it's a contact sport. You have to start using the technology, programming. I would tell people always start with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, because that's the framework that makes up every website that you see before you even dive into anything else. Then you can learn Node.js. And again, you can learn most of these things for free online. You don't have to go through my academy or anyone's academy, to be quite honest with you. My academy is just geared more towards crypto, because you can't really find a lot of good information on blockchain development for an affordable price, especially when we're talking about Ethereum and Solidity. But for just an aspiring entrepreneur, right? Let's take away the whole tech aspect.
Okay.
I would say start with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so you can understand the difference between an asset and a liability. And then the next book I would recommend that you would read would be The Creature from Jekyll Island, so that you can have an understanding as to what is money, because so many people don't know what money is. They don't know the difference between a fiat currency and actual money. And I think that once you understand our monetary system and you start understanding monetary policy, then you start understanding the problem, and you'll start understanding and taking a greater appreciation to what Bitcoin is trying to solve, or what Bitcoin has solved in these other cryptocurrencies. Because Many people don't believe that there's a problem because they don't even know, or they're starting to learn about the problem, but they don't really know the solutions. And when Satoshi Nakamoto, who is anonymous, no one knows who Satoshi is, whether it's a male or female or a group. I believe it's a group of people that basically created Bitcoin. But they were trying to solve the double spending problem and also trying to fix our monetary policy because, you know, monetary policy is what drives income inequality. Monetary policy is what creates a lot of these wars and instability that we see going on. And a lot of people, they don't, if I forgot who made the quote, but they said, if the average person knew the problems of the monetary system, there would be a revolution the next day. If people actually knew how they create money out of nothing, if they knew about fractional reserve lending, if they knew about this debt-based system, this Ponzi scheme, people would be outraged. But, you know, this system is designed to keep you blind.
Got you. Okay, so I have one final question, and I just want it's not really a question, but I just want you to let everybody know where you can be reached, and let everybody know the best places to get this info. You already said that, but basically where you can be reached.
I could be reached on YouTube. My YouTube channel is What Happened to Common Sense. My website for my my academy, where I teach you about blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, and I have a coding bootcamp going on, is mytechacademy.io. I could be reached on Twitter at Common Sense Eli, and also on Instagram, Common Sense Eli. Before we close out, I wanted to definitely leave with this, because I know a lot of people, they are skeptical about the technology. It's been 11 years now, and your best and brightest from Wall Street, Warren Buffett, your top hedge funds, they've been wrong time and time again. And now you're starting to see PayPal get involved. You're seeing JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon came out and called it a scam. Now to come to find out they're working on their own blockchain. Now central banks are starting to want to take custody of crypto. You have to be smart enough to, you know, have the vision to look beyond what you see immediately and where we are right now. And as I said earlier, this asset class is worth $500 billion, less than $500 billion. It's a baby. It's an infant. When you start looking at things like the stock market, that's worth $100 trillion. And when you look at gold, as I said before, Bitcoin is trying to be digital gold. It's trying to be a store of value. And when you think about this right here, if right now I had to flee the country, would I want to carry 100 of these? Would I want to carry 200 bars of gold and silver? With crypto, it's literally, if I have my seed and I have my private key, I can take my money with me anywhere in the world. So it's extremely important, especially in these times that we are about to go through with the Great Reset, with the Fourth Industrial Revolution. There will be a lot of instability throughout the world. We're already starting to see a lot of this stuff, and being able to be mobile with your money is going to be extremely powerful and important.
Thank you, man. Thank you. We definitely appreciate this because you opened my eyes to a lot, and we've only been here for 40 minutes, if that. Definitely appreciate this, and I will definitely be looking into your tech academy because I'm somebody who I like to get my hands dirty when it comes to this information as well. You can see my bookcase in the back. I try to really hone in, and I think that is the problem with a lot of that goes on in our community. We don't want to do the work, and I believe that this is something that if it's going to benefit us to this magnitude, I think the work is going to be necessary. I think it is going to be beneficial.
Yeah.
And we'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to shed light on these things for the Urban X Nation, because that's our goal, is to continue to educate in our own little, way that we do, but make sure that we bring information that's valuable. And this interview was a long time coming, but I'm glad we got it done. And let's hope that it's one of a series of things that we can discuss. And because I'm gonna want to be sending people to the academy so we can get this popping.
And I also want to add one more thing before we go too. I have a free 7-day trial. I don't believe in trying to price gouge people. So I would encourage you just to come test out the Academy for 7 days. If you like it, it will cost you absolutely nothing. And if you don't like it, you can cancel it free of charge.
Dope.
With that
All
being
right.
said, I'm Malcolm. That's the Black Dot, and we have Eli here from What Happened to Common Sense. We thank you for sitting in and taking this information. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Eli's information will be in the chat below. And with that being said, peace.
Peace.
Peace.